This film is such a unique, visceral, emotional, physical experience. Where did you get the idea for this wordless, single-cast movie?
It started with the letter that begins the film. So I wrote this letter from this kind of unnamed older gentleman who was kind of saying goodbye. And I don't exactly know where that came from, but it did. And I wrote it down in a notebook one day. I was on a train and driving by the ocean and sort of saw these boats kind of up on stilts for the winter, and wrote this sort of letter, of kind of regret and remorse, but also hope. And then, probably that sat for a couple months, and it was only a couple months later that I think I slowly started to kind of build a story around it as to how someone might have gotten in the predicament to write a letter like that. And in a strange way, didn't really know that it was such a sort of quiet, and well, not quiet, I guess it's a very, very loud film, but silent from a dialogue perspective, until really I was done. And then I kind of looked back and I said, wow, this guy really doesn't talk very much. And in a way, didn't really think much more of it. It was just, it felt like kind of embracing the inherent weaknesses of the survival genre. Maybe out of that you would get something sort of purer and more exhilarating. The film definitely has a few little mistakes that both the character makes, that were on purpose, where he just makes mistakes, and some things I'm sure that we as filmmakers have made, but it's, it's a film that does take this sort of universal element, which was so kind of elemental to human progress, which was sailing. It's how human beings made their way around the world originally, and up until about 50 or 60 years ago, got all of our goods and services around the world, and so it's a fascinating kind of universal thing that has gone by the wayside, which this guy is sort of trying to reclaim. So it's been a really fun journey for me, and I look forward to hearing how the Australian audiences react.
You deliberately give very little information about who this guy is and why he's out there. And I found that allowed the audience, or allows the audience, to just relate to this guy to an extreme degree, because they are there engaging in a conversation with this character about who he is and what he's doing out there. Was that intentional?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, my sort of embracing those weaknesses in the genre, the weird thing that I realized was, certain key pieces of information from the opening kind of letter that he writes. That he has either a family, but certainly some kind of a home. He's not been a person who's just for 20 years been sailing around the world sort of aimlessly. This is clearly a person who had roots that he's sort of torn up in a way to go on this adventure. So he has a community of some sort that he has left. He's of kind of middle class or upper middle class means. He's by no means sort of uber wealthy. The boat he's on is kind of a 20 or 30-year-old kind of middle of the road little sailboat. So he's certainly someone though with disposable income, but he's by no means the wealthiest guy on the planet or anything close to it. And then besides that, you're sort of on your own, and I think my hope was that through his actions, you would kind of get to know the character of who the person was, what kind of a person in the kind of purest and truest sense of the word, but the kind of biographical details of what he is and who he was and how many children he has and was he divorced, did his wife die, or sort of things like that. I did very, very purposely leave those things out, hoping that in a way, by going on this adventure with a person, you would channel into them. And in a way, they take on kind of the weaknesses of all of us. We all have regrets. We all have things we wish we could have communicated better. We all have situations in our past we might have wanted to deal with better. But in the end, we also, most of us, try to fight for another day when kind of faced with that challenge. And he hopefully fulfills that question for people. And then, in a way, by going through the adventure with them, you kind of learn a little something about something in your life.
Mate, I have to say that it works superbly because it allows the viewer to project themselves into the story.
Yeah, and Robert Redford certainly played a key part of that, because I think in a weird thing, one of the things he was able to do over the 50 years of his career is kind of, while, kind of be broadly kind of engaged with his audience around the world, also sort of still keeping this kind of mystery about him, and in a way never kind of truly becoming kind of an everyman in his roles, because he always seems a little bit kind of above that. Well, this film, in a way, kind of, I think, brings him down to a very, very humble place, obviously, as a human being, but still kind of maintains this mystery that Redford, for all these years, has sort of managed to maintain, which I certainly was playing off of. The audience kind of, there's a familiarity there, but also it's not something where they kind of know him so well that he can't become something else.
As a young filmmaker, how you see the film-making firmament of which you're now part. We're looking forward to your next movie, A Most Violent Year, loved Margin Call. How do you see yourself sitting in the current film culture that's so full of remakes and reboots and sequels and prequels and so on?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a very, very interesting experience for me, because I waited many, many years. I've sort of been wanting to do this with long form, storytelling, kind of feature films, really since I was in college, which is, going on almost 17, 18 years now. So it took me, basically 14 or 15 years after college to really get my first swing at the bat of long form storytelling. And, in that time, I kind of watched the business sort of shift and fall apart and come back together and shift again. And so it's certainly challenging, for kind of original storytelling like this. But I think my career, because I sort of did wait and really zero in on exactly what I thought I did best and where my best opportunities were, the wonderful thing for me was that I kind of had seen a lot of my friends and competitors and, associates kind of go through this experience and realize where you could make a misstep. So it's been wonderful for me. I made a $3 million film called Margin Call, and then we made this movie for around $10 million, and I'm now trying to make a big period piece as we speak. We're here shooting in the winter in New York right now. It's my day off today, but, and that's a $20 million movie. So the industry has been very, very supportive of me and my kind of storytelling. I think the audiences are certainly shifting, so it's been a very interesting time, but I certainly have no complaints that I've been able to kind of tell the stories that I've wanted to tell, and there's been an audience out there willing to follow them. So, I certainly am very, very feel fortunate.
Margin Call, as well as being a fantastic business movie, it was also a landmark film in terms of its VOD release, simultaneous with theatrical. How big a part will VOD play in the future of movie distribution, do you think?
Well, I think, the interesting thing about that film was it was trying to shrink the window between, the theatrical and the VOD availability, which, I think for films of Margin Call size, that will continue to be a key model. But more importantly, what VOD is allowed to have happen is just direct, instantaneous access with a huge audience that wasn't there. And I think that has not been even begun to be sort of capitalized on. And, I think the industry is slowly figuring out here in the United States and around the world how to capitalize on the ability to do that, while also trying not to kind of put traditional movie theaters, which is a very fragile business, out of business. And so I think, trying to find that right balance is a challenging one. But for filmmakers, it's a wonderful ability, at any point to be able to directly, on demand, immediately deliver your film to an audience member, whether they be in Brisbane, or in Wichita, Kansas, or in New York City, where I am right now. A pretty amazing kind of delivery medium to be able to, seamlessly get your product to to any of those people all at once. So I think we're definitely in a sort of recalibration of what a movie is and what that means. But for me, it's something that I see as a great opportunity to get your work out to a broader audience.